All right, YouTube, tell me when we're live. We're live.
Oh,
It's what?
We're live.
It's Monday, July 20th, 2020. I'm Rim.
Scott.
And this is Geek Nights. Tonight we're talking about bug bounties and responsible disclosure. So I guess Bike Nights is back because we went on a long bike ride this weekend.
In the heat wave?
In the heat wave. You know, it was funny. I looked at the weather and I was like, all right, it's going to be like 80 something when we start, and it'll be 95, 96 like when we're toward the end of the run. So I can deal with that. And it was super hot. The heat index was like 105. It was a good ride. But cars are starting to creep into New York City again as things start to open up. And the ozone was back up into the orange during the 105 heat index. So we only biked like 40 miles.
But you leave the city, right? You know, if you don't stay in the city, that doesn't matter.
So this time we did a loop down Rockaway and back. So we were in Queens.
Oh, you went near where all the crazy bad people are.
Yep. We skirted the side of the beach. We could see the chaos over the on the boardwalk and steered clear of it.
I don't know what people are thinking.
The good news is, though, because it was so hot, there really wasn't anyone anywhere else. Like, we didn't really encounter people. It was pretty great. But, so yeah, it was 105 with the heat index, and the ozone was way higher than I expected. So, despite only being a 40-mile ride, a little bit tired in that last 10 miles on the way home on Queens Boulevard.
No, you know, biking always takes at least 10 degrees off whatever the actual temperature is,
Up
right?
to a point. Once the temperature is approaching human body temperature, it does not.
Hey, you got like a fan blowing on your body the whole time.
Fans blowing on your body in certain environments, like where the air temperature is higher than body temperature and also has a high humidity, can actually increase your body temperature as opposed to decreasing it.
If you're
It's not
sweating,
a likely thing.
It's evaporating the sweat off your body.
Not if it's too humid, because then the evaporation doesn't actually happen fast enough and you end up increasing your body temperature.
It's not. It's fine.
It's a rare situation. Very few people have to worry about that, but it can happen.
Never had that happen.
So, yeah, what's up? Before we get into the tech news, because there is a big tech news we're going to talk about at length.
Is there anything up at all? I was sitting in the house, not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go biking next weekend.
We're going to do another night bike, I think, on Friday.
Good luck with that.
Why, it's great. Night biking is like the best way to get out during all this.
You just can't go anywhere distance at night. Everything's closed.
Yeah, well, I could, like the loop we just did, we could do again. There's no bridges that are blocked.
I don't know, actually, if the bridge has a gate on it.
I looked, the gate that can be pulled up is trivial to just like toss your bike over. Like it's not even that high.
Yeah, some of them have like doors that close with locks on them, right?
Some of them the RFK gets sealed up pretty tight on the Randall's Island side, it looks like. Like I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah, there's also sometimes you have to go to an area where it's like you don't want to go there in the dark because a car will get you or a crazy person.
Yeah, we picked some routes that are good. The cool thing is Manhattan is basically a complete ghost town at night. So if we go out biking at like 11 o'clock at night, Times Square or like any like 2nd Avenue, just no cars, completely empty. You can just bike across to the west side, do the loop around Manhattan.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like it's so empty, but when a car does come, it's probably some crazy person zooming down the road, like, having a fun time on the empty road in a car.
Yep. You know what we ran into last time was that gang of people on 4-wheelers and ATVs.
Yeah, you got to watch out for that.
But they stuck to the West Side Highway, so we were able to avoid them by staying in the bike path. They only drove into the bike path when they were ready to have a party in the bike path.
All right.
So yeah, Twitter, if you didn't notice, something weird happened the other day. A bunch of rich shitheads suddenly all tweeted that they're going to give back to the community. And a whole bunch of people smartly said, that's a hack. There is no way any of those people would have said those words. And the next tweet that they all posted was, send Bitcoins here, and I will send you back twice as many Bitcoins. Now, regardless of a Twitter hack, how could anyone fall for that?
Okay, so first of all, so falling for that, I don't believe that very many people fell for that.
So I have some data on that.
Some people doing it were doing it, to like say, oh man, high five to whoever pulled this off. But in the past, there have been many scams just like that scam, not only in real life, but also in, video games. So, Ponzi schemes usually work that way, right?
I ran a Ponzi scheme inside of the realm and made a lot of in-game cash.
Invest a little bit into me. All right, give me $100. Oh, look, here's $200. Oh, this person is a good investment. And they give you $500. You give them back $1,000. Oh,
in fact, if anyone out there tried to buy enchanted orbs from an account named Acute that then disappeared one day with all your money, that was me.
Right. The scam usually works where you get the person to give you a little bit, you double their money, they give you a little bit more, you double their money, now they believe you, then they give you a whole bunch, and you give them back nothing, right?
In fact,
that's how the scam works.
That was, an evolved form of that was the plot of the Square One movie.
Mm-hmm. So the thing is I don't know how the scam works when it's just a one-shot of give me money.
Well, Coinbase...
You didn't have that opportunity to build up the trust. It's just like an immediate give me money.
Well, what's interesting is Coinbase said that they actually blocked over 100,000 attempts to send money to those addresses.
Right.
I'd believe it. The thing that's interesting, really, before we get into the details of the hack, is that for once it looks like it was actually a hack. Though there's
sort of. It was not, yeah. So...
Well, I mean, social engineering, I would say, is hacking.
Sure. I don't care about the semantics, right? The point is that I keep making that is still true is that there is no magical, purely technological way to log in to a major application as someone you are not, right? It's not like there's a magical sequence of keys I can press on my keyboard and log into Twitter as the president without knowing the password, right? Knowing the password is the only way. There's no other way. Right? It's not like I can download some software and run it and ping some port and do a thing and log in as anyone I want. It's not possible.
Well, I mean, occasionally there are zero-day exploits in those spaces, but they're rare. They tend to get patched pretty quickly. There's also, you don't need to know the password. You just need to have sufficient information to cause a password reset that you somehow control.
Right. So the way that these hacked, when 90% of the time when someone says they were hacked or you see someone get hacked on a social network, like their account was taken over by someone who is not them, it is for one of the following reasons. Number one, someone has guessed their password. Number two, they've told someone their password. Number three, someone took their phone or something and just started using their account or transferred it to themselves.
Yep.
Someone got the password to one of their other things, like their email, and then was able to switch the emails on the account and get the password reset email to go somewhere else.
With a lot of like government sites, especially like ones that don't seem that important, there are a lot of direct exploits where people can just do like really simple cross-site nonsense to steal other accounts' data.
Right. Someone somehow got enough personal information about the person to be able to recover the account to themselves and to the non-correct person, right? SIM forwarding, we see a lot where you call the phone company, you get to switch someone's SIM card to your SIM card.
Yep.
So now so all your phone calls and all your texts are now going to the wrong phone.
And then you do a password reset. Most companies do the password reset, like recover your account thing via SMS, thus getting you in the door.
Yep. So that's almost always how it happens. There's no magical thing like some evil genius hacker can do with a black screen with green text on it to like log into my Twitter. Right? Yep. That can't happen.
Now the second way
it especially can't happen if you use two-factor authentication, because now even if they guess the password, they can't do.
Yep. Now a second way to go after this is sort of a middle ground there where you're not really like hacking like Scott described, but what you're doing is spear phishing your target to convince them to do things like take their one-time password, like the TOTP that they get from the Google Authenticator, and text it to you because you're pretending to be the entity that's checking. There's a lot of
some straight up phishing, right? It's like you make a fake Twitter login page and you trick someone into logging into it. Right?
Yep.
Another thing that happens
is spear phishing specifically is phishing coupled with like targeting a specific individual where you know things about them.
Yeah, it's pretty rare for it to be successful, but
when this hack affected almost entirely high prominence blue check boxes, spear phishing was one of my earliest ideas as to what was happening here.
Another thing that happened is an OAuth exploit where, you ever see those websites where it's like you go there and it's like, hey, log into our site with Twitter and click OK, and we'll give you like some feature, like we'll show you your Twitter rank or something, right? And it's like you're giving someone else permissions on your account, right? That to log in as you and do a limited subset of things with the Twitter API. So if you trick someone into going to one of those and they don't read the fine print and they're just like, log in with Twitter, give OAuth permissions, okay. It's like, I gave that website permission to tweet as me, right?
Yep.
So that's what I thought it could be, is like, oh, a bunch of people, logged into some app, right? And gave the app permission to tweet as them. And then either the owners of that app were acted maliciously, or that app was compromised and somebody, right, was able to use that. Because think about how many things like you've like allowed to tweet on your account that aren't you.
Yep.
Right?
I once every couple months actually go and check all the apps authorized and remember, do I use this app? Did I authorize this? Does this make sense? And I've kept it down to I have exactly 2 today.
Let's see how many I have that aren't myself.
And the one I just removed was the Internet Creators Guild because they kind of folded.
Let's see, we got my Nintendo account. Can that tweet as me? No, it's read only.
Yeah.
Let's see. Twitch TV. Oh, so Twitch could do, so if someone compromised Twitch, they could tweet as me, right? Because I guess I gave Twitch permission to tweet when I go live on Twitch.
Yep.
Right? So that means someone who had access to my Twitch account could therefore tweet on my Twitter account.
So basically, we don't know the full
details. They wouldn't
details.
be able to reset the password on my Twitter account, but they could tweet as me and send a tweet asking for Bitcoins.
So what happened here, as best we can tell, and this is still like an evolving story, like this is pretty new news. Most likely, this was a social engineering and/or inside job.
I think it was an inside job, clearly.
Yeah. Well, there are some reports of low-paid Twitter employees being straight up bribed.
I mean, that you pay your employees more.
Yep. Like I'm paid enough. I'm paid enough to where nobody could. There's no amount of money someone would likely be willing to hand me to compromise the things I can. I say likely because for $1 trillion, I'll do almost anything.
I mean, for a lot less than $1 trillion, I think, but no one's likely. It's like for $1 million, I'd do it, but it's like no one's gonna pay.
$1 million's not enough. I would not compromise my entire life for $1 million.
What do you mean? You would compromise your life? You just get the $1 million and that's it.
No, it's really hard. It's really hard to not get caught with that kind of thing.
Don't get caught.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So basically,
it turns out that it was a inside job / social engineering thing where there are various Twitter employees, presumably people who are low-paid moderator types, who still or customer service people who had the ability to like reset accounts and help customers with their passwords and things of that nature.
Like someone has to do that job. Like, what if Bill Gates calls Twitter and says, "My Twitter stopped, fix it"?
Right, and it's not a high-skill job, so it's not a high-paid job, but it's a job that gives you a lot of access to the systems at Twitter, the ability to reset people's passwords, probably to do things like verify accounts or moderate tweets or all kinds of things.
Well, think back to the SIM card swapping we just talked about. There's a dashboard, probably on an internal web app at every cell phone provider, where employees can do things like reassign a SIM, assign a new SIM, change the email address associated with an account.
Yeah. That's why in Ghost in the Shell, you always see them hack into those people and then do bad stuff. Right? So that's what happened.
Yep. Now, what's really interesting is this was not a high-tech or even a high-impact hack. Because one, it was caught pretty quick. Two, let's say the scam worked super well. What, you made a few mil? Okay, you made a few mil.
They only made tens of thousands of dollars.
But let's say you even made a few mil. You blew your load. You had access to some of the most read and most important Twitter accounts on Earth, and you just did a really quick cash grab with a Bitcoin scam and walked away. Mm-hmm. Like, that's why I didn't think this was a state-sponsored act, because that is a threat vector that I don't tend to, we don't want to talk about, because it's not 99.999% of the time when something's hacked, it is not a state-sponsored actor, like for real spies. But a for-real spy type threat vector could very much do this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like
a spy would not ask for Bitcoins.
Yes.
That's not what they're after.
Unless the spy was after something else, like discrediting or messing up Twitter in some way. Like there's a lot of ways you could go. But this just really reeked of some people tried something, got way more access than they expected, used it to pull off the quickest scam they could to then bail. There aren't really that many takeaways other than that, like, the real message here is that every service you use no matter how much security you use, like you use two-factor, you have good passwords, you have like everything's good on your side, you still have to trust the lowest paid employee with administrative capabilities inside of every company you trust. And there's really no way around that. And the worst part is, I suspect at companies like social media companies in general, I would not be surprised if they do not have the types of controls and audit capabilities that most other industries have, that things like Sarbanes-Oxley regulation require. Pretty sure it's just a Wild West inside these places compared to,
probably.
say, banks. Like in a bank, tellers, they key in data all the time. A teller could be like, I'll just send $1 billion to this bank. There are so many audits that there is zero way to get away with that.
Right.
Like,
so a teller is right. A teller is an employee with a lot of power, right? And they're not paid that well. They're paid kind of well, actually.
But there are controls in place.
Job.
There are
right,
hard controls in
right.
place.
The way, so it's like, if you could compromise a teller with bribery very easily, but they manage to keep them from doing bad things with controls in the system, and also people are watching them who are being paid more. Right. So it's harder. You'd have to bribe not only the teller, but also the watchers and the watchers. Right. Yep. And that's how they avoid paying every bank teller millions of dollars to not be evil.
Yeah. But the consequence of that is that only exists in these enterprise spaces where like the company will have a budget for security and auditing that is probably larger than the entire administrative budget of a company like Twitter.
That's because that money that they are paying, right, for that protective system, right, is actually saving them money because they're a bank. They would lose a shit ton of money. What did Twitter lose? Nothing. Yeah.
No, it's not like people are like, well, I'm going to delete my Twitter account in disgust.
Right.
Most of the people just make fun of it.
By this. So why would they spend a bunch of money to protect from this kind of attack when it doesn't harm them?
Yep. Now, here's an interesting point. The banks and like the enterprise companies that do this, the money they would lose is not so much from the hacks themselves, but from the legal consequences of not having the controls in place. There's regulations that force them to do a lot of things because by failing to follow those regulations and have controls, the government can take huge amounts of money from them. So maybe we just need more regulation in Silicon Valley, maybe.
Well, but I mean, you do need regulation, but there's also the point of like, okay, why are you regulating this thing that's not damaging? It's like, okay, it's like even someone who is able to compromise the system, what can they do? It's like, there's nothing of value there. It's like, you broke into the bank of nothing. Congratulations, steal all the air in this vault. It's like,
I could foresee things people could do with this kind of attack on Twitter, mostly getting access to sensitive DMs to then blackmail someone.
Sure.
Compromise high-profile accounts on, say, an election day and tweet some crazy nonsense that dominates the news cycle even for an hour before people figure out what's going on, like during an election.
Okay, but I mean, I could just concoct some screenshots to make it look like I've compromised someone's DMs, and how would you know whether I was legit or not if I had actually done it? Let's say you actually did it and I faked it. How would anyone know who was real and who wasn't? So why even bother doing it for real? What's the point?
So actually, that gets into my news, which is around that Nixon deepfake, which is the video itself is my thing of the day because it is fucking amazing. Like, I watched it. It looks, if you showed that to me without telling me it was a deepfake, I would have thought literally, wow, they actually recorded that video and never aired it.
You can't tell from the pixels that it's a shot.
Like, good Lord, it is good. But the news is this video, this long article and a bunch of videos that explain how the deepfake was made, like the technology behind it, like everything about this space. And you really got to pay attention to this space because deepfakes are real dangerous because, as Scott pointed out, once you can fake things with fidelity enough to fool most people, then we enter a post-evidence society pretty quick. That's where auditing and metadata and things like multiple camera angles are almost the only way to detect reality from lies. Like, to prove a DM that Scott concocted was fake, we would need to get Twitter subpoena the actual raw metadata, like logs from physical servers that handle that information and concoct a context, not concoct, but construct. Concocting is what Scott's going to try to do. If Scott had to construct, or concoct in his case, all the metadata that would be left behind in log files throughout Twitter's infrastructure, That is way harder to do, if not impossible, than just faking the screenshot. The deep fake video by itself is perfect as far as most people are concerned, but the way to have deep fake proof in the future is to have metadata, evidence, like here is a physical tape that they used to record it. Here is a photo someone took while they were recording it. All this other data that's harder to fake. But the point of this news is just
but
that
even if someone could prove that the stuff was fake, right? That takes time and effort, right?
Yep,
Journalists combing through.
They prove it the day after the election, not the day of the election.
Right, journalists comb through all your fake Twitter logs and they're like, hey, we found out these have been faked, and it's like, well.
Yep. Well, you already lost the election. There aren't do-overs. So, I don't want to dominate the whole show with this. I'm not going to get more into it, but I urge you to read this article. Even if the Nixon video is cool, like watch it. But honestly, read this article and watch the video in this article that actually explains how this stuff works. It is way more accessible than you might think.
Oh yeah, people make their own all the time at home. Like you can just make them as easily as you can make Photoshop. You just need some CPU time and some software.
I saw some people in my own Twitter feed who made some. They weren't great, but they were like, yeah, to make it great, I would have had to spend like another few months training it. Like there's a lot of things that they're not willing to do.
You can't make great ones like the Nixon one at home easily, but you can make really damn good ones that would probably still fool a bunch of stupid people.
Yep.
Or I guess not stupid people, but gullible people.
Gullible people.
Naive people.
Unaware people.
Yeah.
Rubes. So
someone who is not aware of the existence of deepfake technology.
Yep, or someone who is primed to believe the thing you've deepfaked and thus will just ignore all the bad pixels. In a final news, this happened a while ago, but we didn't really get a chance to talk about it. I think we mentioned a few times that you probably should not run TikTok, like on any device you own.
If you want to watch some good TikToks, because there are some good ones, watch them on Twitter and YouTube.
Yep.
When they get re-uploaded. Do not install the actual TikTok app on anything you own.
Yep. So I got 3 articles to link to. One is there was a guy not that long ago who basically posted a thing where he was like, so I fucked around with the TikTok app and like sniffed its packets and reverse engineered as much as I could. And yes, it steals your data, but you knew that. Like everything steals your data. Every app you install steals your data for something, especially if it's free. But he compared what TikTok looked like it was doing to all those other similarly shady apps. And TikTok seems to go way beyond what any other app is doing. Like the threat profile of TikTok appeared to be really bad. Independent of that, there is a lot of evidence that TikTok is probably tied to the Chinese government in ways that are concerning. These articles go into a lot of detail about all the different angles from which TikTok is basically a terrible idea that you should never trust on any device you own under any circumstances. So I urge you.
I find it strange that Vine died, and Vine was perfectly fine.
Vine was great.
All right, Twitter bought it, then it died, right?
Well, Twitter killed it because it wasn't the right demographic.
Whatever. And then several people attempted to remake Vine, including the people who originally made Vine. And yet, why was TikTok the one that ended up being successful, whereas the actual remake of Vine by the Vine people was not successful? It's like, what? I don't understand how that happened.
I suspect...
Why would you, if you're sitting there, it's like, why would you choose that one?
I suspect, but this is pure opinion, but these articles actually talk about this a little bit, that it's partly because TikTok had massive amounts of marketing money behind itself to drive its interaction in the early days, to drive early adopters, and to make TikTok float to the top everywhere. Pretty sure that's what happened. But again, you can read these articles. I'll link to a CNN one and a Bloomberg one because they get into a lot of the details, like... Multiple governments around the world have banned TikTok recently. Multiple companies have banned TikTok being installed on any company-owned devices. The TikTok is not cool, and you should not be running it.
Right. TikTok is not a situation like with Zoom, where Zoom is just made, by people.
Zoom's not trying to fuck up. Zoom's actually trying really hard.
Zoom is just low-quality software,
right? Like, I don't trust Zoom, and I refuse to install it, but I don't think they're evil.
It's trying to get better, right? TikTok is not low-quality software. It's actively malicious software.
Yep. Now, I'm the kind of person who treats both equally. Like,
of course.
I'm getting some training. I'm getting some
gotta be aware
pragmatic
of the
training right
difference.
now, and the only conferencing they support is Zoom. So I even raised an issue. I was like, I refuse to install this client. They let me use the web client instead. Like, I was unwilling to install this client on any device I owned. But again, Zoom is not malicious. They just have fucked up several times. All right, that's probably enough to get into things of the day. But anyway, things of the day. So I kind of preempted myself. My thing of the day is that Nixon video. But the context of this video, when Apollo 11 happened, like, we sent human beings to the goddamn moon for the first time ever. That was so long ago that it's terrifying. But it happened. Long before any of us, most people listening to the show were born, people went up on the moon and walked around, and that was crazy.
And not only that, we did it a bunch of times. And people forget all that. They only forget the first time where we like poked our head out and went back in, and we don't. People forget the time where we went out and drove around and shit.
Yeah, of course there was. Well, people also remember the time we tried to go out and blew up and barely made it back.
Right, the two most famous times, not the awesomest time where we went around and did a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah, who remembers what happened in Apollo 17? But this, like, people really today do not fully appreciate how, I'm quoting someone who wrote an article about this a while ago, fucking insane it was to send humans to the moon with the technology we had in 1969. Like, the odds of success were as high as they could be, and they were not as high as I think any of you would have been comfortable with if you were fully, like, involved in this situation. So the president of the United States, Richard Nixon at the time, who is no longer the most corrupt president in American history, somehow, had to write about, like, had a speech for the success. Like, he gave this big speech, like, we fucking sent people to the moon, and now they're home. Oh, my God. They also wrote a speech for all the different ways the astronauts might not come back. Like, every possible terrifying news that the president would have to give to the American people quickly if something went very wrong. And
because rocket exploded, they made it there, and they're going to be stuck on the moon.
Yep, like they're going to die there, and they can't get
they're
back.
They're stuck in space. They didn't even make it to the moon. They died on their way back to Earth in the atmosphere. This is why the odds are low.
Yep.
There's many, many ways to die and very few ways to succeed.
So the text of one of those speeches, like those speeches, that's all public information now. Like, you can go read the text of every version of a speech Nixon was going to give, depending on how things went with all these launches. But the deep fake video is someone took one of those speeches he never made, and the deep fake is Nixon very convincingly giving that speech. And it fooled me. At least it would have fooled me if I didn't already know it was a fake.
Well, I mean, you could have been fooled. I think it's the additional effect of, like, you could tell someone, right? Like, hey, they actually recorded Nixon making all the speeches, and that way they could just play the one that was the real one.
Yep. Right. And that's plausible, right? Plausibility plus deep fake, you're good to go. You can fuck things up with that technology. So be prepared. So
but he only gave the one that actually happened. What do I have? So, last time, I think on a recent thing of the day, maybe even the most recent one, I talked about how I was watching a bunch of DJs on Twitch because, that's what you do when you're stuck inside all the time, right? You're looking for new music, no concerts, no nothing. The club is closed, right? Or the club is trying to open and getting shut down because they were stupid and tried to open. I had my last thing of the day was a video showing how to DJ. But I want to highlight one of maybe my favorite DJ that I found on Twitch, and also other services, right, is the lovely Natasha Diggs. So there was this show that I didn't know existed until now. And so I guess we have to thank being trapped inside and people DJing online for my discovery of it. But apparently it's been going on for many years. They got this show called Soul and Horn, and it's basically two people, the DJ Natasha and this music curator, producer type person named D Prosper, who I don't know anything about because I don't see them on the screen. I only see the DJ.
Yeah.
And apparently they were doing shows like all over the city, and you could see, like, if you look on their Twitter account, it'll be like, yeah, Chelsea Music Hall, $12. It'll be like, yeah, even saw like Lincoln Center, like like they were playing all around the city all this time, right? Doing shows. But of course they were forced to stop doing shows. So now they have an excellent streaming setup from their little record vault in Brooklyn and also other locations, as the case may be. And basically, it is absolutely far and away the best DJing I've seen or heard on Twitch. It's totally free, and they're doing all sorts of cool stuff over there, right? So the first cool thing they're doing is they are not filtering their money through Twitch, right? They're basically, I guess, illicitly going around, and they're like, yeah, send us money with Cash App or whatever directly. There's no Twitch subs. There's no nothing.
That's honestly probably the right way to go with anything. Like, if we tried to make money from our streaming, we would not rely on YouTube and Twitch monetization.
Right. It's only Friday nights. So you want to check with their website or their social media, Instagram, whatever, to figure out exactly when it's going to be on Friday. But it's only Fridays. It's not like a constant thing, right? Like some of these other people are doing. And the other cool thing they do, which really I think helps build the community around it, is they have a Zoom. It's a Zoom, whatever. But what they do is the idea is that you would, since there's no club, it's just this person in Brooklyn DJing by themselves with a bunch of cameras, right? That you would go on Zoom and dance, and then they show people dancing at home, right? It's like you're watching and like someone's controlling the camera and switching between the DJ, someone dancing at home, some old school video footage, right? Someone else dancing at home, right? And it's like,
that's actually pretty fun.
It gives you like this, sort of community feeling. And plus the music is like unbelievable. So yeah, if you are looking for something to do on Friday night and you don't want to go outside, this is as close as you're going to get to going to the club.
Yeah.
Soul in the Horn.
Maybe we should all go to the club this Friday.
No relation to the album Soul in the Horn by what's his name? What's his name? Al Hurt. No relation to the Al Hurt album that I'm aware of.
All right. In the meta moment, we're stuck home. We can't do stuff. It's actually really hard to record panels because we're not in the same physical place. And this barely works, what we're doing right here.
It's not easy.
We're working on plans. We're going to have live, or at least live to tape panels at the Crunchyroll Expo, at PAX Online, and at more conventions, TBD. MagFest looks like they're doing something cool, so stay tuned on all that. We are working hard to bring a bunch of content online in all these places. The fun part is, for various reasons, you might end up, the video you watch, we might be doing the show live, like outside in a New York City park somewhere.
Who knows? We'll see.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, so also I've been playing Paper Mario Origami King that just came out.
I got it. I'm going to start it tonight, I think.
No, I don't know if it's your jam or not, but I finally went through the effort and I set up a good Twitch streaming setup here. So because it's now so easy to just turn it on and play, that's what I've been doing. So if you want to watch me play Paper Mario, it's on my Twitch channel. I didn't go to YouTube because YouTube still has some Nintendo stuff going on, right?
Yeah, you can't really stream Nintendo games.
And also, I could do some Discord, but it's a little hard to do Discord and something else at the same time. So, maybe if I stream some non-Nintendo, maybe I'll do the Twitch plus YouTube or Discord only, or, who knows? Maybe you'll just have to go and subscribe to all three of those places if you want to figure out when or what I'm streaming now that my setup is good.
Basically, follow Scott on Twitch and YouTube. Follow me on YouTube, and join the Front Row Crew forum Discord, where occasionally, I'll just stream Quest for Glory in there. I'm playing Quest for Glory 1 again. That game is actually, it holds up way better than I expected. Though there are a few soft locks that I remembered from being a kid, and those were never fixed. So I tested and I found them all again. They're still there. So if you play that game, don't.
Are they at least the ones where you've soft locked, or are they the ones where you're gonna be, if you've never played the game before, you're just gonna be sitting there for hours wanting to hurt yourself?
Oh, they're obvious because you can't click on anything anymore, and the game just kind of freezes.
Oh, so that's a hard lock?
Well, no, because the game still progresses, but you can't interact with anything anymore. But the animations on screen are still going. NPCs are still walking around.
It's still a hard lock. It's that the game is broken. You can't do anything. A soft lock is like you're playing Mario, right? And you're in a room and you're surrounded by bricks, and the P switch is on the outside of the bricks, and you can't get out there. Right?
Yeah,
That's a soft lock. It's like you can still play. There's nothing. The game's not broken, right? You just can't progress because the state of the game is such that you're stuck.
There are some ways to kill yourself where you don't realize you've done it until later, but that you're actually warned about that, and they're all obvious, and the game tells you save a lot for that reason, because a lot of times those deaths are really funny, but they never, it's like, there's this one blue monster, and if you keep fucking with it, it eventually jumps up into the sky. It's like this bouncing thing. It disappears, and you're like, huh, okay. 5 minutes later, whatever you're doing in the game, if you didn't like deal with that situation, you just hear
exactly 5 minutes later.
I forget exactly how long it is, but some short span of time later that's just long enough for you to have forgotten, you'll hear that noise and it'll fall on you and kill you.
Okay, pretty cool.
But the game's playable.
Okay.
All right. So we talked about the
book club book is still the Tale of Genji. When will we read it?
Someday.
Nobody knows.
Yeah. Mike and a lot.
Summer reading is canceled 2020.
Yep. I'm reading a lot of nonfiction lately for a lot of reasons.
We're going for the record of longest book club book without being read.
The worst part is if COVID hadn't happened, I feel like we would have read it by now.
Yes, I do believe that, because I was reading on the subway.
Yep. I was reading on the subway. Also, I had a lot of travel where I would have powered through it. So we talked about this topic, at least a similar related topic, a long time ago on Geek Nights, back in like 2009.
That's been 11 years. Okay, we could do a half redo.
Yep. But the topic was basically full disclosure. The idea being, if you find a bug or an exploit that could be that you could exploit in some way in commercial software, in an online system, do you tell the world about it and tell the full details about how it works? Do you just tell the company that's affected and tell them the full detail of how it works, but hide it from everyone else? Do you tell the whole world that it exists, but only tell the company that has the problem the full details? Like that whole conversation. But we want to expand this and talk about it more generically in the terms of disclosure at all, like the idea of responsible disclosure, especially because bug bounties have become a much bigger thing in the decade since we did that last show.
Bro, I mean, bug bounties are nothing new.
They've always been around.
Right, but I think what's happened is that they had like a big spike, and now they've sort of like settled into the status quo for quite a few years of like these expectations, like of what bug bounties are all about.
Yep.
And there's a lot of problems with these bug bounty systems that exist, and they basically aren't being addressed because the status quo, which is not good, is being maintained.
Yep.
Right? So the first major problem with the bug bounty systems is that a lot of companies employ them when it is not really appropriate for their situation, right? So usually when would a company have value in a bug bounty program, right? So the idea is, hey, we have software that's important security-wise that we make, right? We want to know about all the vulnerabilities in that software so we can solve them quickly. And we're willing to pay people to solve those problems because our product is worth money, right? The thing is, you could just hire security experts to do that, right? Why, the bounty program is like, in case someone else out there right, has accidentally found something, that you would hope that your bounty program would convince them, okay, person out there, you found a bug in our software, right? We're encouraging you with this bounty money to tell us responsibly and get paid by us, as opposed to doing crime with it to get money.
Or
right?
I've seen low dollar programs where the goal is even simpler. Get people out there to find low importance, like minor bugs that you don't care that much about, but you're not going to invest enough in QA to find and test and fix. But it's almost like an on-demand secondary QA of your thing. I've seen that use case.
You could use that as a hiring pool, like you're finding people to hire to become your security
I didn't even
experts,
think
right?
of that, because that is actually how I got my last job. Not
Someone
with bug
cares-
bounties, but a similar situation.
Right, someone cares enough about your software to, in their spare time, find bugs in it, and they're successful at it. It's like, yeah, you'll give them money and hire them,
Yeah.
right, and have them join the team.
Like, I'll tell you all, this is useful anecdotal information for you in the future. My previous job, the way I got it was I was at a company. I bought software from another company. That software had a lot of problems, and I sent them a huge number of extremely detailed bug reports and feature requests, to the point that they literally approached me and said, "You want to just come and manage this product for us? We'll pay you plenty."
Sure. So anyway, so the problem is a lot of companies set up these bug bounty programs when they don't have the resources to fix all the bugs, right?
Yep.
So people start submitting all kinds of bugs and security vulnerabilities, and they don't have the capacity to fix all the bugs in their bug log, right? Yet it's getting filled up like crazy, and it's like, shit.
And now what? Do you pay the bounties? Now you're just spending cash and not fixing the problem.
You're spending cash to fill up your bug log, right?
Or do you...
And now people know about bugs in your software that you can't fix. You're actually in a worse position.
Yup. Or
Encouraging people.
do you not pay the bounties? Now you've got a bunch of angry hackers who have found bugs and have documented those bugs and are ready and willing to exploit them.
So yeah, that's a big problem. Another problem, and I see this as like the real crime here, right, is when it sort of gets turned on its head, right? It's like, okay, we don't want people who find security vulnerabilities to do crimes, so we'll give a monetary incentive to do the good thing. People then turn around and say, oh, well, you know what? I'm not going to get hired by anyone. I'm just going to sit at home and try to complete as many bug bounties as I can, and that'll be my, not real job.
Yeah.
Right?
Now, on one hand, that's part of the gig economy. Granted, the gig economy is a scam, but that's a separate problem.
And this is an exploitative practice because basically the bug bounties don't pay enough, right? The effort required to find bugs that pay a lot, that are worth a lot, and the time it takes to find them is like full-time job plus. Like, it's not easy to find a vulnerability that is worthy of a huge payout, right? Yep. So if you spend all your time doing that, even if the companies pay you, you won't be making what you're worth, right? So people end up doing this because the system is created and it entices people to do it and encourages people to do it when that's not something anyone should be doing.
Well, I think it's very similar to a lot of other exploitative practices in the gig economy. Like, specifically, you're basically outsourcing this work to people who are kind of desperate, who will do it because that's the only work they can find. Like, they have these skills, but they can't make money doing anything because the economy's fucked and capitalism's a scam. So they end up doing this. But think about, even if you're a cold, heartless killer and you don't care about that person's plight at all, think of it from a purely exploitative, as an evil person standpoint. If you're not paying high enough bounties to the person who is extremely skilled, motivated, and desperate to find those bugs, but the black market is willing to pay those people to find bugs for them, and they're paying more than you're paying, you've actually weaponized this person against yourself.
Exactly. This person, if you hadn't had this bounty program, maybe they wouldn't have learned your software so well, right? You just created someone who knows your software really well and knows how to find vulnerabilities in it. That person would not have existed. No one would have cared enough about your software without you. It had the opposite. You were trying to make your software more secure. You, in fact, just created people who are very good at hurting your software. And now you have to basically, they're not, no longer are you paying a bounty, right? They are now blackmailing you to pay them.
Yep.
Right?
Even
you should have paid
worse,
them in the first place, but,
I don't even blame the person who sells themselves out to the dark side of the web, because it's their hustle. They're fucked anyway.
It also creates a lot of situations, even if you pay people or have a consistent policy of when and what you'll pay for, it creates a lot of bad press amongst the tech people, which I guess is not good because those are people you would want to hire, right? Possibly, right? And those people, if you get bad press, because, they see something like, hey, I found these bugs in the software and they won't pay me. And you have some legit reason. Like, it's like, actually, we only pay for this and that. And, it has to be a vulnerability that does this. And we don't consider that to be we don't consider that to be as severe a security threat as that person who found it says it is, because it would require you to have like pre-existing access to the machine or something like that. So we consider that to only be worth this much money.
Yeah.
And you end up having to have all these PR fights, and that ends up being the job of someone at your company to do all that communications work, right, with the bug bounty finding community.
Oh, wow. There's a really...
It's pretty much never positive for your company. I've not seen a lot of positive interactions where people are like, oh man, company X is just really great about honoring and paying out bounties. They're so great to work with. It's like, no, because it's an exploitative system. No one's ever going to be happy, being on the bounty finding end.
There are some numbers in this Verge article we're going to link to. They surveyed 600,000 people on one of these bug bounty platforms. And out of 600,000, let's see, 146 of them have never made more than $100,000 and annual income in their lifetime on the platform.
I think a lot of people on those platforms like sign up, poke at something, and go away, right? How many of the users are like actual people who have decided to stay home and find vulnerabilities and have the technological skills necessary to actually do so?
It points out that the starting salary for an entry-level penetration tester is more than $100,000 a year.
That is correct. But there aren't enough of those jobs to go around, because it's
because the companies won't pay for it. If they were going to pay for it, they wouldn't have these bug bounty programs.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what I'm saying. The only legit purpose of them is what I said before, which is to, if there is the criminal out there, to give them a second thought to do the responsible disclosure and still get paid, as opposed to going down the path of crime. Right. It shouldn't be a path where that's someone's job, right, by a gig economy. Right. It shouldn't be a replacement for employees. Right?
I feel like every one of these gig economy type things should be heavily regulated in ways that effectively force these platforms to pay a minimum wage or shut them down.
But also, minimum wage is not enough for this.
I said a minimum wage, not the current minimum wage.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm talking like $25 an hour, like modern minimum wage.
How many hours? All right, so I find a bug in 5 minutes. I get lucky, and I spent a week on it.
Well, you know how actually a lot of contracts handle that? Like generally, the way that's handled in most industries is any amount of work is rounded up to some large increment, like 4 or 8 hours.
Yeah.
But we're not getting into those fiddly details.
Yeah, for me, if I was a company and I wanted to do anything like this, right, it's like, I know the only people who are really using my software a lot, right, it's the customers, right? Mm. And I'm only really going to be doing this if I have like an enterprise non-free software.
Yeah.
Right?
If I was selling enterprise software, I could consider like offering a discount program to my customers.
Right, I would do it. I would do this with my customers, because it would basically be like, hey, customers, if you find something by accident, because you're working so closely with my software, please don't crime us and ruin us, right? Yep. We'll pay you. I wouldn't go out to the whole world and say, hey, does anyone want an informal job? Or, hey, criminals who are ignoring my software don't realize it even exists. Please come and find things wrong with it that I don't have time to fix. It's like, I wouldn't do any of that, right? So yeah, that's what's up with those.
Yep.
So you do find something wrong in some software.
Yep.
Right?
Bounties notwithstanding, what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
That's. I don't know what we said in 2009.
I don't know what we said in 2009, but it really depends. Maybe crime is the right answer.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess there's always the argument to be made with any exploits that someone finds on their own. We're not talking about someone who like hacked into a source code repository and like did crime to find this data. But what about someone who is intelligent and educated and had publicly available information, and from all of that, they find a serious exploit in some software?
And a good example of how to find, you might say, oh, well, you never find anything by accident. But actually, there have been a couple times in my life, for real, where I've been like using some software and I've accidentally ended up logged in as a different user. That wasn't me, right? And at least one of those times, I figured out how to reproduce it, right? I was like, oh, that's how it happened. Now
at
I can make it happen.
I was able to log into other people's scheduling during the Hell Day once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like it just happened, right? It wasn't like I was actively looking for it. I wasn't like and mapping their server and trying to do all kinds of dirty biz, right? It's just like a thing happened, and then I just figured it out over the course of computer usage.
But even if
right?
you figure it out on purpose, like figuring out how to pick a lock is not a crime. It's only a crime when you pick someone else's lock that you don't own to go in and do something with it. But describing how to pick a lock, not a crime.
Nope, not at all.
So describing how an exploit works, is that a crime?
Nope.
Probably not.
But almost all exploits that we see these days are some sort of like buffer overflow, memory protection kind of situation. They're all it's like you're seeing the same exploits types over and over again. It's just where they exist, right? It's they exist at this memory location in this program in this situation, right? Or this program in this situation. There's an SQL injection in this form in this spot. Right? It's the same types of exploits in computer software over and over again. There aren't a lot of new kinds. It's just where are they in which programs?
Well, like we said, most exploits are like the real exploits in terms of just how do you exploit a company's software. Most exploits are social engineering inside jobs anyway.
Yeah. There are also, rumors of exploits that are like, I think I read something recently about like fake Cisco routers that they were, someone was selling bootleg Cisco routers, and they found out when they tried to do like a firmware update, it didn't work, that it wasn't a legit router.
I have been on the receiving end of gray market routers before when I worked at a job many years ago.
They heavily inspected those routers, and they didn't find any back doors in them that they found. So we presume that it was just someone trying to make money selling bootlegs, but could have been.
Yeah.
Right? Could have been. And that's not something you can like find and get a bounty on.
Yep. But I guess I think it really comes down to, like, especially in 2020 and what's going on right now, what will happen if you share this information, and is that an outcome that you personally believe in and would stand behind? Case in point, say you figure out a way to, I don't know, like you find a police server that's public with like public information, and you find a way to dump out a ton of information that shows some malfeasance of the police department. Maybe you feel comfortable sharing the details of that exploit in the wild. Like, maybe you feel comfortable doing that. Is it not your right to share some text and opinions that you have on the internet without a specific call to action?
Yeah, you'll have to do that in such a way as to remain anonymous, right?
Yep.
So they don't know who done it. Otherwise you'd be in big trouble.
Yep.
But let's say, back in the day, I feel like, it's like, what would people do? It feels like, on the one hand, back in the day, the people who managed to find software exploits were simultaneously more malicious and also less, right?
Yeah.
It's like, what are you going to do in 1990 something with a software exploit? It's like, all right, I'm going to pirate some software, I'm going to pirate some games, or I'm going to make someone's hard drive explode, or delete all their data, or make a funny skull bounce around their screen, or, right? Whereas nowadays, it's like, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to take all this massive amount of data from a big company that's very, Experian or whatever, the credit bureau
I'm going to sell it on the dark web.
Sell on the dark web, ruining a whole bunch of people and getting identity theft on them. I'm going to, take people's money. It's like actual crimes now, right? It's like no one's computers are exploding, right? It's like less evil in that way, but it's more evil in like, hey, you're doing harmful crimes and not just pirating some video games.
Now, it's interesting. What I do remember, especially in the 90s, like when this discourse was happening, I remember a lot of stories of people who would responsibly disclose directly to companies in general. Like that was the thing people would do and talk about. But there was definitely a long-term set of chatter around the fact that companies basically ignored these and never fixed bugs. Like
that's exactly what the problem with the bug bounty thing is, right? Is like it's only bad press for you, even if you handle it perfectly, because you have to constantly be handling all these people who are sending in stuff, right?
Yep. But also imagine if the person who finds the bug is a security researcher. They want to write an article about this exploit because that's how they make their living, being an expert in this space. They're going to advise other people on this kind of exploit.
Right. And they're going to give you time. They're going to say, hey, you let me know when you fix this so I can publish my article.
Yep.
Right? You have all that, right? And so when you fixed it, I can publish my article. Everyone can see, and you'll see articles like this, especially on sites like F-Secure or whatever, right?
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we found this security vulnerability. We reported it. They fixed it. Here's an explanation of it. So that way you can write your software better and not make the same mistake that they did. And that's very valuable stuff. But if they just don't fix it for a long time, for whatever reason, and there's a lot of reasons. You worked at a company. How many bugs you got just sitting in the bug hopper, never fixed, right?
All I will say is that, remember that anecdote about how I got my previous job? I was in the position where, as a product manager, I looked at a Jira backlog and I saw a whole bunch of bugs raised by some motherfucker named Rim DeCoster.
Yeah.
And I looked at all of them and chose not to fix most of them. I remember that day explicitly because the CEO was like, wait, because he noticed and he asked me about it, and it was a funny day.
It's funny stuff. Right? But the point is, if you had not been hired, if you were still on the outside waiting, right, you're getting mad.
Yeah.
You're getting mad.
I mean, all those stories in the 90s, the pattern seemed to be someone would end up posting anonymously on like one of the old bulletin boards of the day. Hey, here's an exploit. I told Microsoft about this for like 3 years. They didn't do shit. Have fun. Because even if there was no bounty or anything on the line, if a lot of hackers, I assume this mentality is still there, you find something like that, you feel like you did the right thing, you get ignored, you get aggrieved, and eventually you take revenge. That's a common pattern.
I mean, that's just a common pattern in all of humanity, right?
Yeah.
Is it when people feel that they have been the victim of even a small injustice, right? They get angry, right? So it's like, hey, I did the right thing, and nothing happened. I expected a thing to happen, it didn't happen. Now I'm mad, a little bit mad, at least, maybe a lot mad, depending.
Themistocles is like, hey, we should build a navy, and Athens is like, no, we don't need a navy. And then a naval invasion comes, and Themistocles is like, I fucking told you.
Right, you're mad. You're mad.
I am still mad on Themistocles' behalf to this day.
Yeah. Rightfully so mad, right? So, and think about how mad you would be if, you read some text explaining some bug bounty program that said you should get $100,000 and you ended up with $0. You're way mad.
They're like, no, your exploit is good, but here's a bunch of nonsense that doesn't actually make sense anyway. We're not paying you.
Yeah, I've seen recently someone be like, yeah, I got $100,000 of stuff. All right, so they didn't pay me. I'm gonna release it. And then Microsoft Twitter was like, let's talk. It's like, well, why did you talk earlier?
Yeah, but it comes down to that. It's almost like that example, which we'll link to. You can read the Twitter thread. It's pretty funny. That's an example of the company doesn't care until PR comes on the line. But in this case, the company made the PR problem in the first place by even having the bug bounty program.
Yep. So I guess I'm hungry now.
Yeah, I am too.
If you're a company, don't make a bug bounty program unless you are sure it's the right thing that you actually need, right? That fits your situation.
If your rationale
it rarely does.
If your rationale is we can't afford to pay pen testers, that is not adequate.
No. 2, do not go and try to find bugs as like in bug bounty programs, thinking that you'll make a living doing that, even if you're good at it, because a lot of companies won't pay out and you'll have to either crime or blackmail the companies to get money, and it's not worth it. You have those skills, just get a job.
Yep.
You have the skills, or open up a consultancy or something, right? You have the skills.
It's valid,
to do this.
Though it's still part of our capitalist hellscape to use those sites to find bugs to go after just to build your own resume, but that is also exploitative, just it's less exploitative than the people who are forced to try to make a living with it.
Right. And if you do find something by accident or on purpose, right, try to follow your conscience and the best practices for revealing or not revealing that to the company that is responsible or the world or criminals, based on the situation. I hope that you're a good person and you'll do the right thing and not some shady thing that hurts people.
Do the right thing. If you disclose because it will help the right people and or harm the right people.
Mm-hmm. And if you don't disclose, do that because it will help the right people and harm the wrong people. It's
interesting, and I say that with a little bit of, that most of these broad tech subjects, like what should you do in X situation, actually come down to ethics, one of the things that almost no tech school actually teaches.
I had ethics classes.
Oh, I did too. We went to a great tech school.
Okay.
All right, I am also hungry, so.
I hunger.